Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of. All right, construction champions, welcome back. I'm your host, Nussbaum. We're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast. And as we dive in, do us a favor, hit one of those buttons, like, subscribe, follow. I don't know where you're listening, so I don't even know what button you could possibly hit, but just hit one of them. It helps get us out in front of more people. It helps us achieve our mission of changing the mindset around the construction industry. And how do we do that? Twice a week, every Monday and Thursday, we bring you amazing guests to help create the construction champion that you are, give you actionable stuff that you can take and do today. And today is no different. We have an amazing guest that I got to spend some time with on a podcast when we were at the International Builders Show. We've gotten to know each other a little bit. Janna, it is great to have you here today.
Great to be here. Excited to be in another conversation with you. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. But before we dive into that, why don't you introduce yourself to all the construction champions out there that might not know who you are?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm Janna Colucci. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bundle, which is a digital procurement platform that makes it easier to buy, sell, and manage construction materials. But to take it a few steps before that, I actually started my career as a sustainability consultant. So deep in the kind of green space, very quickly got working on green building projects really across the world and just fell in love with buildings. And that was the beginning of the end, how I think about it in some regards. So I was working on pretty big commercial projects in New York City and all over the place, but based in New York City, and started just getting really frustrated with the tools that we were provided with on job sites. I was just shocked how old school and just like fragmented a lot of communication was. And we've talked a lot about communication and the emails, faxes, phone calls, all the things that make building on a job site more inefficient, in my opinion. And so I really got excited about stepping up the construction stack, if you will, and rethinking what those tools look like to then enable better building downstream. And specifically how I kind of got to procurement and Bundle is one of the projects I was working on in New York was actually the company I was at, our headquarters project. So I was even more in the weeds with the project than was typical. And we were looking at every single item coming into the space at a crazy level. I was on the phone with hundreds of manufacturers all the time, and still things would come to the job site incorrect, whether it was we ordered the wrong thing or there's just miscommunication or someone forgot to, often me, forgot to send another email, phone call, fax, whatever. And so it was kind of like, all right, this materials piece of the puzzle is such a huge part of what we're spending on any construction job, be it a commercial project or a residential project. And it also impacts so much of the construction schedule. And worked at a couple kind of construction companies after that, saw the same thing time and time again. And I was like, all right, I got to solve this problem with procurement. And that's what we're doing with Bundle. We're basically a software plus service provider that almost acts like an outsourced procurement team in some regards to really streamline everything related to materials management for residential builders.
Awesome. I love it. I always say, construction's a lot of logistics and people don't think about it. But like if the stuff's not on the job site, the guys aren't doing their job. It just jams everything up. So it's whoever can figure out how to get the stuff to the job site effectively when it's supposed to be are the ones that will have the most success. So
there's so much going on. There's so many moving pieces to your point, like logistics and just so many things that if you don't have a good system in place or the tools to work with, it's almost impossible, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's dive in. I'm going to ask you the $1 million question, and that is what makes a construction champion?
Yeah. I would say first, the way I think of anyone involved in construction is your main job is that of a firefighter. I feel like you arrive any day to work and just have to be ready for anything that may come your way. And a lot of the day is usually putting out those fires. And so I think what I think of as a construction champion is really someone who solves those problems, obviously doesn't give up, but beyond that, the next time is like, how do we get ahead of those problems and do something better the next time? And so that this mindset of kind of continuous improvement, evolution, easier said than done in some regards. But the one good thing about construction, especially on the residential side, is you're typically managing a lot of projects, or there's another one that will come up pretty soon in the future. And with that, how do you make that one, even if it's only a little bit better, how do you make that better than how this current project went?
I love it. I mean, I built my entire career in construction off of doing exactly that. And I still build my career off of that. Is like, we have to, like, you're going to have problems. But what you have to understand is you need to permanently fix them so it doesn't happen again. And as you're growing a construction company, that's where the roadblocks come in. Like, if you don't permanently solve the problems when they first happen, and then you add another crew on, or you do that next build, that issue compounds because then another issue comes up. So I love that perspective because I have been out preaching that for not even preaching it, just living it. Like, that was what allowed us to go from a few crews to 30 crews was I just fixed problems permanently and we moved on. So you had that system, that process right there, done deal. As soon as the problem is arrived, we figure out a solution and we move on.
Definitely. And I think so much of construction is, like you said, there will be problems that come up, even if you think, even if you have the greatest system ever. And so it's like, how do you have a process in place that you can turn to, or, how are you collecting information or communication or, any of these things that you can solve the problem really easily when it does come up and it doesn't, balloon into a problem that is taking you way more time than you needed.
Yeah, which nowadays with the tours and the access to data we have, I look back and think we just didn't have that. We operated a lot on not necessarily but what we thought was going on, what our assumptions were, because we didn't have the data set that you can have now with everything that's happening, which allows you to make a lot better, more calculated decisions today than you could 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I just had a situation this morning come up where, so it's, haven't been on this project for forever, kind of jumping in after somebody, and the vendor that I'm working with or manufacturer I'm working with wasn't always, that point of contact wasn't always on the project. And I reached out to them earlier with like, all right, the wrong material was ordered for this. Like, what are we looking at? And they're like, oh, I have no record of, like, where do we even begin? And I'm like, oh my gosh, how would I used to would have, back in emails, phone calls, like a day long trying to solve this problem to get the right product ordered on the job site, which is the end goal. And instead it's like, all right, just pull up our system. We know exactly what was ordered, when, who it was ordered from, who was the point of contact at that point, and all of that data is just sitting there ready to go. So I actually just had that same thought process, exactly like you were saying, like, how did this used to happen? And at least now we have some tools that move us in the right direction to at least have that information accessible.
Yeah, but the problem is there's still people out there that are spending the days of, and what ends up happening is you don't get it figured out because like you spend the first 2 hours trying to figure it out. And then you're like, I'll tackle this tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes.
And then, yeah, exactly. 4 weeks go by. You're like, huh, what did ever come of that?
Interiors show up. They're wrong.
Oh, totally.
And then that creates a delay. Like, these tools are out there. You have to be willing to evolve. We talk about it on here all the time. Is like the way we change the construction industry is we evolve as an industry. We start implementing these tools into our business that allows us to have these data sets. And it's not going to happen overnight because you have to build out the data. Like, you don't just sign up for Bundler and have all this data. Like, it's an overtime, it's organically created. And I think that's one of the misconceptions, especially with software and technology and construction, is that it's something that gets built out organically over time.
Definitely. And I think, and that's where we've gotten better too, is there was sort of this first wave of software in the industry that I think a lot of people got burned by, largely because everything in was sort of set on needing you to enter the data manually. And still some of that obviously comes in, but I think the tools have gotten a lot better at how are we capturing that data? What can we do with the data once it's in the system to make that less of a manual process and hopefully not burn as many people. It's not as much a data entry task anymore, hopefully. Or at least not that.
Yeah, it's not about the data entry, and amazingly, it's about the collection. And what have we have always sucked at as an industry is the entering part, because it's like we roll out these CRMs, these project management softwares, and then we put a bunch of shit into them, and then we wonder why we don't get the results we want. So yeah, it's eliminating that pain point. Where do you see that heading here in the future?
Yeah. I think it's pretty commonly talked about. I feel like anyone mentioning AI at this point, but where do we now, if we have that data in any sort of digitized format, we can then use that data to inform processes or really anything. It's just we can learn from it in such a better way. That's a lot of how we're thinking about using AI at Bundle too, of like every step in the process. We have these data sets, more and more project data. What can we now use that to do that is manual work for you typically? It's like, just to give a specific example of that, we're always getting materials data, we say build materials data into the system, and that can be, we have a lot of tools to make that process easier, but it's still at the end of the day is doing takeoffs and pulling things from plans. Maybe some things are coming from customers, some are coming from, whoever else on the job. And there's a lot of work in just getting that data together. And so a lot of what we've been thinking about is like, how do we actually cut out steps of that process? Because we know what you've used in the past and we know the general feel of what this new project you're working on is. Can we make that whole process easier for you? That's just one kind of small example, but we think of that as, we're starting to build up these data sets. How do we use that to make your lives even easier when you're using our tool or other tools as well?
Yeah, I think that is where the power of what AI is going to be able to do that we're way underestimating, especially from a construction perspective, because I think we touched on this in Vegas. Like we just don't have those data sets. Like guys have not been building that out. And when this is figured out of what, I mean, I believe it will be able to proactively solve problems as long as you're entering in the correct information,
Mm-hmm.
it's being reported, and it's going to be able to be, it's going to be like a watchdog over your company. And it's going to be able to be, as you're the business owner, to where you're coming in and you're just looking at stuff that's red flagged by AI. So then you can actually solve what are going to be the future bottlenecks before they even become bottlenecks. But to get there, we have to start doing something.
Oh, 100%. And I do think there is obviously in this industry, especially such a relationship-based component that I'm very much of the mindset that all these tools and software are facilitating what we're doing, but we're not losing that piece of it. But there are just so many manual tasks that don't need to be done by a person, whether you want to maintain a relationship or not. I actually, total unrelated to this, I was checking on Google Maps the other day, like booking a reservation or like seeing if there was availability somewhere. And this little bot popped up and was like, "Do you want me to call and see if there's availability right now while you're on your way?" And I was like, "Yes, definitely. That's amazing." And like the little chatbot pops up is like, "We've called the restaurant. Let them know you're on your way. Like table for 3 coming up." And I was like, "This is so amazing. I don't want to have to call whatever we're driving, chatting in the car." And I feel like that is such a like a teeny quality of life thing, but it's so relevant in terms of so many of the day-to-day tasks that anyone on a job is doing, that there's 50 million things coming up. You're having to make these little phone calls and check in on things and get that data updated. Like what if that to-do list could do some of some things itself because the systems aren't? It just like, I think the direction we're headed in.
That makes complete. I mean, who wants to call the restaurant?
Exactly.
Because it ain't like you go to the next one. If it's like you don't do online reservations, you have to call us. You just move on to the next restaurant.
Totally. Exactly. It is. I'm like, oh, perfect use case for an AI bot. Like you're asking the same 5 questions. Even if there's a problem, it's pretty predictable what the next question might be. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, but I think that's the kind of stuff like when you're talking about just these little things that just take stuff that nobody wants to do off of their plate. Like I think it's going to revolutionize the sales process because sales reps don't have the discipline and AI does. And I think if you take very good sales reps and match them with an amazing AI agent to do the tasks that they don't want to do, but we're getting them in front of that customer so they can do what they're great at. Like I think you're going to see effectiveness of sales forces. They're going to shrink,
Yeah.
but they're going to be a lot more effective because now the one thing that most sales reps that are high performers have in common is they do the extra stuff. They
Mhm.
have that discipline that just gets to that next meeting, and you're going to be able to do that by using AI. And better yet, just position your stud to just get on the cars and do what they do best. So now they're not even drowning in everything else. It improves their life. And I think there's going to be, like you said, with the reservations, there's going to be stuff we aren't even thinking about that are just menial tasks that we hate to do, that one day it'll be like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. Like, let's do it that way.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
So with that, we're talking around the AI and everything, that's kind of a buzzword. Let's get into just some practicalities around implementing software. I know we've had some conversations around this. That's a herder in the construction industry. Say it takes 6 to 9 months to fully implement software into a construction business. It's one of the things where I think a lot of people get bogged down in that and they don't end up getting the true value out of it. What for an approach are you taking to that, or what are you seeing in the
Yeah.
construction space?
Yeah, we try to keep any sort of implementation down to almost zero. Like understanding that people don't have the time to sit down, or if we've put the blocker in front of you of you need to even spend an afternoon to sit down and figure this all out. I mean, if you want to do that, I think you'll probably get the most out of any software platform, but it's like how do we build a tool and continue building a tool that doesn't require that? Because the reality is, half our customers we talk to are sitting in their truck calling us and, need to get some things or want to start the process and improve their process, but they're not even necessarily sitting behind a computer all day to be implementing the software. And so, couple different things on our end. One, just the simplicity of the product and how you get information in and out of the system. A big unlock for us, which was a little bit behind the times, I would say, is launching our mobile app, which is way easier to use anywhere you are and doesn't require a computer at all, obviously. We'd optimize some things of our normal web app to mobile, but it just isn't quite the same experience as, even now messaging is one of our most used features in our app. You can be messaging any of your manufacturers or suppliers, other people on your team. You feel like you're texting. You're doing that from wherever you are, and you're getting push notifications if something is urgent and you need to address it. So there's a little bit more of this kind of flagging to you or pulling you into the product only when you need to, or need to be in there doing some sort of action as opposed to you needing to check something all the time. Um, and a lot, I would say that goes even further when you're coming into our product. We actually have a new feature coming out towards the end of this week that's a more refined homepage where it's so clear. Like maybe you have 4 minutes in here and you already have a couple things that you've come in to do. How do I give you the easiest path to get all those things accomplished in the shortest amount of time? And it's a combination of clarity, simplicity of the product, but then on top of that, what we were talking about before, like what intelligence can we build in that the product is suggesting things and sort of helping you through the process even faster than you could do it and find things yourself. So a bunch of different things there, but that's big picture how we've thought through some of this. That I actually think, in AI, I think of as being a tool at the end of the day. Like I think there's a lot of technology that we can use to do some of these things, and that's an enhanced version. And there's a text-based component that is, technologically advanced. I think it will continue to move in a direction that we don't even know yet, and we'll do crazy things. But I think there's a lot that we can do even with the tooling that we've had for the last 5, 10, 15 years to make big improvements to current processes, and really make people's lives easier as long as we aren't putting up these roadblocks to sort of how people actually are doing their job in the field.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because that's really how construction companies can look at software is they look at it as a roadblock. They don't necessarily look at it about how this is going to improve our business and what this would be like in 30 days. They look at right now and it's overcoming that roadblock. It's getting people. I like to use the example of if you drive the same way to work every day for 15 years and you come up to a red light and you find out if you go right instead of left, you save 5 minutes. You still come up to that light and take a left on some days because you got that muscle memory baked in there. And it's like, how easy, what for cones, what for direction can we get to get people to take that right hand turn every time to save that time?
Yeah, definitely. Agreed.
Awesome. So 2025, what's the big plans here? What do you foresee happening for yourself and Bundle?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a ton of growth towards the end of 2024. Really have gotten our product and process and a lot of things really grooving with a lot of our earlier customer base. So expect to see a lot more use of the product. We've gotten some really good manufacturer relationships as well, which really give part of our offering is not only the workflow piece around buying and selling building materials. So the workflow component, which we typically say you can run your purchasing process at 10x speed. But there's also aspects of the product that are really kind of buying group mentality, hence our name Bundle. And so we basically bring together our volume and then get you access further up the supply chain, whether that's direct to manufacturer, wholesale relationships, negotiating customer specific pricing and things like that with those vendors for you. And so with that, having more and more of those really great relationships and automated data coming all the way through the system has been a really exciting thing to see over the last year or so, and that always continues to grow. But really having a lot of those relationships and interactions happening on the platform should be super exciting for 2025. I think there's so much happening on the tech side, innovation side, whether it's AI or otherwise. We definitely are thinking a lot about where are those different access points or entry points where our customers are using our product every single day that we can, have the amount of time that they're spending there, or just, use more intelligence to make the process even easier. So I think you'll continue to see a lot of things coming out within the Bundle ecosystem on that front.
Awesome. So let me get this right. Is you don't just make sure stuff gets to the job site, you actually help with the cost and like that aspect, that relationship, and be able to get the guy that's thinking he's getting ripped off by Home Depot, get him in a position where he's getting better prices on what he's buying.
Exactly. Because what we see bigger builders is, have enough money to hire a full purchasing team. But also, honestly, they're paying, you know, crazy prices for some of these items because of their volume. And so our whole thesis is, why does that only have to be accessible to the bigger builders when honestly smaller builders need that even more, but don't necessarily even need a full-time purchasing person. Sometimes they do, but you don't want to build up a full purchasing team, even if you have higher volume of projects at a given point in time. And so we basically say, all right, a couple $100 a month, you send that all to us, you get a project manager on our team to manage that process, but also we're tapping you into some more of those volume-based relationships like a bigger builder would have and be able to negotiate on their own. The only difference I would say from a really traditional buying group is we don't limit you to only buying from those manufacturers that we have direct relationships with. You can get anything through it. So we really become your purchasing partner in that you can put anything into our system and it's sourced for you. Sometimes it can take a teeny bit longer if we've never worked with a supplier that's selling that product. But with that, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds where you're getting the volume buying power, but also we often hear like some designers don't want to limit to like the 3 brands that a buying group is offering. So with that, you still have the breadth of optionality and can provide whatever you need to your homeowners, but also are getting some good buying power with that.
See, you learn something new every day. I didn't even know that that was part of your offering. That's amazing to be able to create an environment where you're not only making this more efficient, you're making it more cost effective by building out these relationships.
Yeah, and so bring your friends. That's the other great part is, the more people that come and use the product, the more buying power you get. And it's been fun. I've met a bunch of different local builders and groups who have like gotten together with their friends and tried to do the same thing. But then it does become still paperwork and sort of invoices and all sorts of things to manage when you've kind of set up your own mini buying group. And so we try to take any of that headache off of your plate, but still give you the value. So
Huh. I didn't see, I never even thought about, but we were uh Menard's number one customer in the state of Michigan and like number four on Home Depot's list. And I couldn't get like I tried to go other places. I tried to go direct to places and I just could not get better pricing than what I could get through them. It seems crazy. I mean, we were spending enough money, but just to source the stuff that we sourced from there, it just was the most cost effective way. Now because we did so much volume, there was a lot more kickbacks and stuff once we started realizing how much volume we were to them and started having the conversations with them and saying, you want our business to stay here. How do we make that happen? Which is what you're doing as a mass group, which that's pretty amazing.
exactly. And we do actually, it's interesting to bring up Home Depot or Menards or any of those guys because they do really take advantage of their volume and buy at, times where even there's promotions happening and buy in huge volume and can pass through sometimes the best pricing that, even local vendors or even almost direct to manufacturer can get you. And so we have a lot of different data sources moving through our system, but we have direct feeds to Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, Wayfair, like a bunch of those different kind of e-com and store brands, but e-com brands. So you have those options and can always see also what your homeowner customers may be seeing out in the market. Now the internet can be dangerous where, homeowners are like, oh, I can get this price better. And you're like, okay, maybe, but that is no, you can't. But also it just adds complexity to the project. But we kind of built in that piece of things. But then on the flip side or backside, we also have data flowing through from more local vendors, manufacturers directly, that sort of thing. So our mindset is much more like, let you run this bid process. We say at e-com speed because you're getting all these bids from all these different sources as soon as you add an item in or upload your bill of materials. But also, have all these different options and be able to really narrow in quickly. So
Awesome. That's all. This has been an amazing conversation today. I have enjoyed this. Like I said, I've learned some new things that I didn't even know. So that's always amazing. For all the construction champions listening, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about what you are doing, where's the best places for them to do that?
yeah, our website is bundle.build, BUILD. Or you can always send me an email. I'm active on LinkedIn, but feel free to email me directly. It's Janna, JANNA at bundle.build. Happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Awesome. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag. And believe it or not, we talked about how you need to start getting up to date on what you're entering in places. Because as technology continues to shift, as stuff around us continues, let's take a moment and just think about when Janna was talking about setting that reservation up. Like, to me, that's mind blowing because that's literally a pain point that would cause people to go not to that restaurant because they're like, I don't want to call. I'll find one that'll let me book online or just go to one that doesn't need a reservation. Like, that's thinking outside the box. The only way Google was able to do that is they collected the data stuff around it and they realized, hey, here's a void. We can fill this void. Let's build this product. It's the same thing with your business. As you're building your business and you're creating these data points, it allows you to make decisions. What I said earlier about how I believe business owners and CEOs will function in the future, I 100% believe that. And it's probably happening outside of the construction industry currently. It's just a lot of construction businesses don't have the information to make the decisions based off of what some program that you build that red flags problems before they even become problems. Because it's our goal as business owners to be operating on the stuff that has an impact on our business, that is solving problems before they even become problems or roadblocks for you. It's why it's so important. Like I said, 24 months from now, people are going to listen back to this stuff and be like, man, Ron was so right. Just do it. Do something. Start putting your information somewhere. Like I've said, I don't care where it's at. Just find something that works for you and your business and start getting information into it, because that's the start. Once you start doing that, you create this data set, and then amazing things can start to happen from that. You don't have to bite off the entire apple in one thing, like one bite. Just take a bite and start doing it. And that's all you have to do. Like, it's that easy, guys. Go out there and do it. So make sure you check out all of our fantastic partners. And until next time, be the construction champion you're meant to be.